Welcome, everyone, to a special edition of Mr. Faith and Physics Presents. I'm doing a special on someone who inspired me a great deal as a young man and is part of the reason for the faith in Mr. Faith and Physics. Alan Watts was one of the first comparative theologists sent by the Church to perform reconnaissance on the competition in the Far East. Upon returning to the West, Mr. Watts brought much of the philosophy of the East, which had, up until this point, been lacking in Western society. Having performed his duties, he came back from the East a changed man, and spent the remainder of his life teaching and giving lectures at colleges and universities across the United States and around the world. Unfortunately, I never got a chance to meet Mr. Watts myself, as I was still a child, but I did find out about his incredible philosophy. Radio broadcasts, many of you may remember back in the 70s, they would air his lectures on Sundays on different radio stations across the country. I'd also like to thank Goldwave sound editing software for allowing me to remaster this old tape, going from sounding like this.
You see, because of this state of mind, we don't think that play is important.
To sounding like this.
We play in order to refresh ourselves to go back to work. And that's not playing.
So now, here we are with the first of two parts of a 2-hour lecture entitled The World as Play by Alan Watts.
It's going to be a fundamental course on cosmic gamesmanship. We shall discuss, first of all, the yang and the yin, because what we are studying is the way whatever may be called the universal energy plays. And so the fundamental thing is yang and yin, the positive and negative principles, to use the Chinese words. Next we shall discuss relativity. Next we shall discuss group theory, in and out. And finally, we shall discuss identity. Who are you? But in starting, the moment one talks about cosmic gamesmanship, it carries with it the assumption that the physical universe is a game. And that doesn't seem to be taking it sufficiently seriously. Of course, according to Hindu philosophy, the physical universe is an illusion. They use the word Maya. But Maya has many meanings, and among these meanings, only one is illusion. And the word illusion, of course, always carries a bad connotation to Western ears. We want something that's for real. But it doesn't necessarily carry such a bad connotation to Hindu ears, because the word Maya also means magic, creative power, art, and of all things measurement, because it comes from the Sanskrit root matra, M-A-T-R, from which of course we get meter, matter, and the Latin mater, mother. In other words, the world is looked upon, or can be looked upon, as a perfectly good illusion, because all art, in a way, is the creation of illusion. On a stage, the actor plays, and Hindus think of the world by analogy with drama. The whole thing is a big act, and there is one actor behind the whole thing, which is you. Not you in the sense of your so-called empirical ego, not you as you imagine yourself and as you ordinarily sense yourself to be, but what is really and truly you at a much deeper level. But you see, when we use the word game or play in English, we usually tend to mean that it's something trivial. You see, we divide life very strictly into play and work. Other peoples don't do this. And that's one of the shatteringly awful features of our culture, this division of play and work. So that most people are working at tasks which they hate, so that they can make enough money to stop doing it and play. Well, this is perfectly ridiculous. Nobody needs to do that. Because what you get with work done in this way, done heartlessly and without joy, is money. And what can you do with it? Supposing you do earn time to spare and money to spend, what is there to buy with it? The answer is the other fake and joyless products made by other people who hate their work. So there is a certain phoniness, a certain lack of essential quality in almost all the work that we perform, because the work is done not for the work but for money, and play is considered something separate from work. Work is serious. Play is not serious. In fact, we have a strange incapacity to play at all, because we always, especially in the United States, play with an ulterior motive. That is to say, play is good for you. And we do everything because it's good for us, because we judge the physical world with, without our senses. We judge in theory. We believe that the proof of the pudding is not in the eating, but in the chemical analysis. It is often my fate to have to take lunch in college cafeterias. And what must be happening to the intellectual life of the nation as a result of professors, graduate students, and students eating this kind of stuff? This must be catastrophic. Because I go all over the United States to various colleges, and everywhere the fare is exactly the same. You get a so-called salad, which is a piece of that wretched icebox lettuce, with a dollop of cottage cheese and a wedge of canned pineapple on top of it. And then you get slices of beef that have been tormented for hours in an electronic purgatory, sloshed over, or rather coated is the exact word, with a gravy made of water, library paste, and bouillon cubes. Then there are peas, carrots, and corn, which have been sterilized, because that's important, by boiling for hours. And finally there is a pie, which is a slab of beige goo, crusted in reconstituted cardboard, and topped with sweetened shaving cream squirted from an aerosol bomb. And all this has been analyzed by dietitians and by the whole department of home economics, and is found to veritably contain the right amount of calories, proteins, carbohydrates, and vitamins. Now actually, this is all a result of academic politics, because academic politics, you know, is mainly concerned with feuding between departments. And this is the way in which the home economics department has won out, by rotting the brains of historians, anthropologists, mathematicians, and physicists with this miserable fare. And this goes on all over. Things are judged, you see, because they're good for you. And if we inquire carefully as to what this good for us is, you know, you mustn't look into that. It's taboo. The whole culture would fall apart if we found out what it was, because what is the good that is good for you is always and necessarily something in the future. It never happens, and is never going to happen. All that these vitamins and carbohydrates and things can do for you is keep you in a state of reasonable survival, and in which you never catch up with anything. Because you see, time is strictly an illusion. There is no such thing as time, any more than there is such a concrete thing as the equator. The measurement of time is a measure of motion, just like lines of latitude and longitude are a measure of the geographic surface of the earth. And nobody will ever tie up a rolled roast with the equator. There is, however, such a thing as timing, which is quite different from time. Timing is skillful rhythm. But you cannot ever attain proper timing if you hurry, if you're in a hurry to get to the future, because the future is never going to arrive. So, if you hurry to get to the future, you always get a punishment for it. For example, instant coffee, TV dinners, the sort of food they serve on airplanes, or beef that is cooked in electronic ovens where you push the switch and a whole roast is done. It isn't, it's heated through, it's not roasted. And all these things are awful because they are the result of the illusion of time, that there is something that is good for us and that we're going to get to. And so this is the result of an educational system which is completely geared to literary and mathematical pursuits, which trains everybody to be clerks, insurance salesmen, and bureaucrats. And only with great reluctance does education offer any kind of instruction in material competence, and then only for people who are considered too stupid to be intellectuals, to go on to college. So the basic arts of life in our culture, farming, cooking, dressing, furnishing, lovemaking, are utterly neglected. There is no sophisticated training widely available in any of these things for the average person. And so that's the reason why there is nothing on which to spend the time that we save and the money we earn, except trash. So fake cars, pasteboard houses, bread made of squishy styrofoam, vitamin enriched, and all that sort of thing, see, because of the illusion, we've fallen for the illusion of time. So only what is absolutely necessary for a culture, that means a society of cultivated people, is the cultivation and devotion to the present, to the material world, rather than to the purely theoretical world. You see, Maya in Sanskrit does indicate in one sense the physical world, because in the positive sense, that the physical world is actually a marvelous work of art. But Maya in another sense, in the sense in which it means measurement, refers to all the ways we have of numbering and naming and dividing up into categories the physical world. So time is Maya. Latitude and longitude is Maya. The future is Maya, in the less exciting sense of illusion. So, you see, because of this state of mind, we don't think that play is important. We play in order to refresh ourselves to go back to work. And that's not playing. Playing is a real absorption in the delight of a dance, for example. You don't dance because it's good for you. You dance because you're happy. But you see, we have a very odd incapacity for happiness, because we are happier when we expect good things to happen, rather than when they're happening. And so we say of a thing that we consider bad, it has no future. Well, nothing has a future. There isn't a future. There's always a present, and one has to get this as a kind of a basic approach. So then, one can also, therefore, use the word play, or game, in a sense that is not trivial. We don't think, for example, that when we hear a performance of a Bach cantata, or better, a purely non-symbolic thing, like a fugue, we don't think that that's trivial. We don't think it's trivial to play the organ in church. We don't think that the plays of Shakespeare are trivial. They're plays. Play, you see, in the sense that I'm using it, is a musical thing. It is a dance. It is an expression of delight, in the sense of Blake saying that energy is eternal delight. And, for example, the art of Islam, the arabesques, which aren't pictures of anything. They're just fantastically intricate, beautifully colorful designs. They are play. And according to this thesis, the universe is just like that. It is a very, very elaborate play system. And the fundamental elements of this play, the Chinese call the yang and the yin. Yang means the positive and yin the negative. Yang refers to the south side of a mountain, which is in the sun, and yin to the north side, which is in the shade. Yang refers to the north bank of a river, which is in the sun, and yin to the south bank of a river, which is in the shade. Yang is symbolically or prototypically male. Yin is symbolically female. That's not to cast any reflections on women. But, so you might say that the reason they're called male and female is that yang is aggressive and yin is yielding. Yang is convex, yin is concave. Now, the secret about the opposites, which is as important as realizing that there is no such thing as time, the secret about the opposites is this, that they appear to be as different can be. We say of opposites, like black and white, that they are the poles apart. But in using that phrase, poles, you imply a connection between them, as there is a connection of the north to the south pole of the earth, and as there is a connection between the north and south poles of a magnet. They are two ends of the same stick, two sides of the same coin, two opposite points on the same sphere. And that means that they go together. In Chinese, this is called arising mutually, as in the second chapter of Lao Tzu, where he says, when all the world knows beauty to be beautiful, there is already ugliness. When all the world knows goodness to be good, there is already evil. For to be and not to be arise mutually. What confuses people is that they don't see this. They think, for example, that the positive is something there which truly exists, whereas the negative has less reality. It doesn't exist. We think that, for example, the space in which this universe floats is a non-entity and has no importance. And we are thereby, because we see energy manifested in the positive aspect of things, and no energy manifested in the negative, we are afraid that energy and its delight is threatened by nothingness, that it's going to be swallowed up, and that in the end darkness will win. We feel that about ourselves, and we feel it about the universe as a whole. Because energy is effort, and effort, after a while, you get tired and you can't keep it up. And so darkness must win. According to Chinese philosophy, that is a hallucination. Because energy cannot be manifested without inertia. There must be something to push against for there to be any manifestation of energy. You cannot dance without a floor to use your energy against. You cannot, when energy or any kind of motion is completely unobstructed, there's a sort of squish, a fizzle, and nothing happens. Because fundamentally, as we shall see next hour, motion is only realized when there is stillness, relative stillness. And so energy is only realized when there is inertia, and the positive is only realized when there is the negative to bring it out. These things work together, but when you don't realize it, you are anxious. You are afraid that the dark side is going to win. Now, the minute that happens, you become unable to play. You start getting serious, and the game degenerates into a fight. Because you feel it absolutely urgent and necessary under those circumstances that the positive must be made to win, accentuate the positive, you see. And that leads to all this beastly kind of religion, where people go around with forced smiles and hearty handshakes and accentuate the positive. And the moment that a person does that, you know that it's a big fake, it's a put-on, and that there's something utterly unreal about it. That's why you may have often experienced the fact that certain kinds of virtuous people are offensively virtuous. And they are very difficult to get on with. They don't have any light touch. And of course this is particularly prevalent in religions. Because not all religions, but many religions are states of terror about the negative side. I was talking with a very enlightened nun the other day, Catholic, and she was open to all sorts of new ideas. And I said, you know, there's one thing wrong with your worship, and the way you sing your hymns and chant your chants and do all these rituals. You don't swing. I don't mean by that it isn't syncopated. I mean by that there is not an attitude of delight about it. It's always you feel the service is being conducted in the presence of the chief inspector of morals. The original stuffed shirt. The appalling grandfather, in whose presence you daren't show any kind of sprightliness, because after all, you know, when we are children and we are very exuberant, and we leap around and bounce and all over the place, we make the adults tired. And so they say, shut up! But they also used to say, it's not so common now, you know, little children can be seen and not heard, because the moment a child starts getting exuberant, they will try to give him a guilty conscience. You have no business having so much fun. There are other people in the world who hurt. There are people who are starving. There are people who suffer. And for you to go around leaping around as if the whole thing was gorgeous is a kind of irreverence. So be guilty. Shut up. So as a result of that, where we think that an occasion is a particular solemnity, where you're in church or in court or standing in a row of Marines or something saluting the flag, everybody gets grim. And so there is no delight in religion of that kind. Well, this nun agreed with me that they really ought to do something about that. And I said, well, maybe I'll come to your convent and teach you how to sing. But you see, all of that is because of the fear that the nothing will win over the something. Now, it's true in games, there is a winner and there is a loser. But in a fight, it's different. In a fight, the object of victory is to get rid of the defeated party. Because he's bad, and he ought not to be there at all. But in a game, it's quite different. Because if there is to be a winner, there has to be a loser. So it's terribly important not to get rid of the opponent. You could have no chess unless you had the black side as well as the white. Impossible. So in a game, what we admire a person we call a good loser. That is to say, a good sport. Because he does not take the loss seriously. It's very instructive, for example, to play any game that you know well, whether it's chess or checkers or whatever, with yourself. And each time you move over to the opposite side, play it with your best skill. For example, you can play a very marvelous game. You take 2 cocktail olive toothpicks, you know, the kind they make into little plastic swords, and you do a fencing match with yourself. And actually try to stick one of your hands, and the other hand really tries to defend itself. You'll find this is extremely interesting. It's a meditation exercise. And then you realize, you see, what is the nature of a game. Because if you are a good chess player, you may congratulate yourself if your opponent wins, if you have given him a good contest. Because then the game as such was interesting. And you come to realize that you and your opponent in a game of chess together constitute a single organism, like your right hand and your left hand fencing with each other. Let not your left hand know what your right hand doeth. That means, have a conspiracy to pretend that they don't belong to one organism, and that they're different, like black and white, like space and solid. They must look as different as possible. But underneath, in order that there be a game, in order that there be, in other words, a relationship of these two, there has to be a secret agreement. They have to be tacitly one, but openly two, exoterically two, esoterically one. Because, you see, on the stage, when you get the hero and the villain, they are really friends behind the scenes, because they belong to the same company of actors. But this mustn't be admitted on the stage, because that would give the show away. Now you see, it's true, we mustn't give the show away. That's why there are esoteric teachings. But on the other hand, there is another opposite extreme, which is not realizing that the show is a show. And that's as bad as giving the show away. So you have always, when you are in the theater, say you go to the movies, and you go to see some great horror movie, you know, awful thing. Well, why does one do it? You want a thrill. And the whole of the universe wants a thrill. That's what it's all about. Otherwise it would be boring. But when you go to the movie, you know in your heart of hearts that it's only a movie. And yet you contrive to some degree to forget this while you're there. And therefore get scared and feel real creeps. That's great. Some people like to go and cry. They go and see some tragedy and just love to weep. Because it's a catharsis. It gets all the salt out of you or something. I don't know. And so you do this thing. And we can say it's vicarious. Yeah. But that is the spirit of showmanship, of play. So one might say then that it is possible in this life to attain a sort of metaphysical courage, in which you really know deep within that the most harrowing experiences that physical existence can offer are a show. Now this is the, what you might call ultimate nerve. And, for example, when the samurai in Japan studied Zen, that's what they wanted to get from. They wanted to get ultimate nerve, so that absolutely nothing would faze them. So there is a poem which says, "Under the sword lifted high, there is hell making you tremble. But go ahead, and there is the land of bliss." Don't hesitate. Don't be blocked. Don't be phased, nonplussed by the illusion. Now you would say, well, that's all very well, but I can't bring myself. I start to shake and I can't stop it. It's not to do with my will. And no amount of gritting my teeth, clenching my muscles, exercising my willpower can get rid of the shakes when I am really scared. That's true. But you must remember that the secret to all this is not to be afraid of fear. When you can really allow yourself to be afraid, and you don't resist the experience of fear, you are truly beginning to master fear. But when you refuse to be afraid, you are resisting fear. And that simply sets up a vicious circle of being afraid of fear and being afraid of being afraid of fear, and so on. And that's what we call worry. Worry is simply a chronic condition. And people who worry are going to worry no matter what happens. Because when one possible threat is exterminated, they will immediately discover another. Because worry is an infinitely skinned onion. And you can go on and on and on, because the moment you reduce the size of the onion and you get your worry down to about this, suddenly your whole sense of distance and size changes. And because you're looking so intently at this little onion, it fills your whole field of vision, and is once again a big onion. See? You start peeling that down. But as you get another one about this size, then it enlarges itself in your judgment and your sense of values. And once more it's colossal. Now that's always going on. So if you are disposed to worry, there is always plenty to worry. You make plenty of money and you have no troubles about that, then you start wondering if you're going to get a disease. And the doctor says, no, it's all right, there's nothing wrong with you. Then you wonder if you're going to get into an accident. And then you take precautions, and then you wonder if there's going to be a political revolution, etc. Whether your house is going to be robbed. There's always something. So it is really, this kind of worrying is a completely useless pursuit.